So today we are joined on Coaster Conversations by Vice President of Operations at Six Flags Qiddiya City, Neil Dwyer. Thanks for joining me today, Neil. And how's things going?
Hey, good. Thank you, and thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Absolutely no problem. Now, for what I'm aware, Neil, we just said before I hit that record button, you started working out as a ride operator at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Now, could you tell us a little bit about your time there and how a ride operator's job turned into this role you have today?
Yeah, actually, so my first job was actually at Camelot theme park. If you guys, that's where my parents told me I had to get a summer job. So I thought, well, if I'm going to get a summer job, let's go and do something interesting. So I went to work at Camelot as a ride operator, and I guess I was just pretty good at it, and I was interested, and I progressed to team leader and then assistant manager over, I guess, about 7 years, and then I went to Blackpool to when I finished my master's degree to look after operations. But I had a great time as a ride operator, and I think one of the things it really taught me was what do guests expect? How do we manage guests? And I used to watch guests in queue lines and think, wow, if I was stood in that queue line for an hour, how frustrated would I be if the ride wasn't running efficiently or people weren't being as quick as they possibly could? So I became a little bit obsessed with efficiency. Was one of my real big learnings, but it was a great perspective, and I can't talk well enough about how much of a positive experience I had as a ride operator, and how much I learned, and more so than any of my qualifications.
With you saying there about almost like the mindset of a ride operator, I mean, it's certainly very different to that of a creative team member, for example. I mean, it's more of a logical mindset with queue lines in mind, throughput, and things like that. Do you feel as though that experience has allowed you to curate Six Flags in a more meticulous way than a standard creative team, for example?
Oh, do you know what? I think I'm the worst creative person in the world, and my team will tell you that. So yes, I do. I think it's been great to design Six Flags in Qiddiya City with that mindset of thinking about operations and thinking about efficiency and thinking about how things should run. But the creative team is just as important. And we've been fortunate enough to have a great creative team from Six Flags US or from our architects or from my internal team, and I have a couple of great creative people in there who also, try and steer me and keep me on track. It's not just an experience of people coming in and it's all about numbers and you got to get QRs. No, you have to. We're also selling experiences, so they're great at keeping me on track about that, and I'm great at keeping them on track about efficiency.
I read somewhere that you worked at IMG World of Adventures, so I only got to experience that for the first ever time last year in Dubai. But with such a rapid way in which projects are built over there and how quickly they change and transform, do you feel as though working over in the Middle East at attractions such as that has kind of prepared you well for this project?
Yeah, I do. And I've had a great time in the Middle East, and we've been here for 11 years now. And the speed in which it moves is unlike any other country I've ever worked at in the world. We're talking about designs and we're moving quickly and we're building stuff. And elsewhere, it might take you 3, 4, 5 years to do it, and we're doing it in half that time. And it's really exciting. The pace is really fast. The team need to work quickly, and we need to make quick decisions. But it's great to see something come out of the ground so quickly.
Yeah, 100%. It always blows my mind because every single couple of months you see like a construction image, and I'm like, okay, so half the theme park's now built and it's come out of nowhere. It's crazy to see that turnaround. Is it crazy for you being like the feet on the ground, just seeing it evolve around you as you're walking across site, for example?
I go to the site a couple of times a week, and I try to spend some time out there with the team and looking what's happening. And every time I go, the routing has changed, or we've got more roads, or more rides are installed, and I have to find a new way around. And that's within, a couple of days. And certainly, if I take vacation and I'm away for a week or two, it takes me forever to reorientate myself, just because these guys are moving so quickly, as you see from all those construction photos that we have online.
Is it definitely a blink and you miss it sort of scenario? Because now Falcons Flight's completed. I'm like, oh, when did that happen? It's so crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just seemed to go so quickly, both for Falcons and for everything else. And the thing that I'm really conscious of is that my team are out there keeping on top of things, because we want to be reviewing. Right? I think we've got great plans on paper, we've got great drawings, and we spent a lot of time in that design phase. But occasionally we go to site and go, hey, this might not work, or we need to change it. Well, we've got to be quick about that, because if you don't change it quickly, they've built it on one day. 2 days later, it's themed, it's painted, and it's installed, and suddenly you've got a big job to undo. So yeah, we got to keep up with their pace.
In the term Vice President of Operations is certainly a very broad term, so let's just narrow it down for a second. Could you just give us a lowdown of your day-to-day role and what is it that you're specifically focused on throughout the project at this moment in time?
Wow, good question. It's a little bit like playing roller coaster tycoon. I feel like I'm operating the mouse.
Yeah.
Um, so anything operational that touches the park, I'm responsible for. So I'm looking after ride operations and guest operations, our ticketing, our front entry, our experience, security, park services, and our entertainment team. So anything that goes into that park experience that you're going to see when you buy your entry ticket and you come in is kind of my responsibility. So day to day at the moment, we're finalizing our operating procedures. We're optimizing our ways of working. We're receiving attraction handover, or our team are deeply into that attraction commissioning process. I tend to work, and we do work really, really closely with our project guys to make sure what we're delivering is aligned with the operator. And one of the reasons that I've been here so long and that we were a real advocate for having an operations team here so early, because operations, I truly believe, are the experts in knowing how they want to do it and how it should be done. So we've worked hand in hand with our construction and our development and our delivery guys to get that experience right. And whether that's from theming to queue line layouts to signage, we've touched all of these things, thousands and thousands of pages of design that are now coming out there. So I spend a lot of time with our delivery team, a lot of time with our ops team. We're working now on guest journeys and what does our arrival process look like, and what does our ticket sales strategy look like, and what are our products going to be, and just working through to finalize those ahead of our opening.
And then the role that you are taking part in currently, now when the park is fully operational, how does that role sort of adapt from what you're doing now versus having an operational park with people and guests in attendance?
Oh, well, they'll let me stand at the front gate. I always say my career, the best place I can be is at the gate when guests are leaving, because I want to hear their feedback, and it's something I've always done. So we're moving from an office-based role, and I've spent a lot of time sat behind a desk, but we're going to move from an office-based role to being out there on the park. I'm really an operator. If you look at my career history, it's what I've always done, and it's where I thrive. So you'll find me when you guys come to visit out on the park with a radio, making sure that we're optimizing our guest experience and everyone's getting the best possible experience.
From all the experience at parks you've worked at in the past, obviously things can go right sometimes and things can go wrong sometimes. What sort of lessons have you learned over your career to fully prepare you for this ginormous project?
I think the first one is never forget you're in the guest experience business. Whatever we go out there and do, and wherever you work, you're ultimately here to support the guest. So whether you work in operations, or you work in finance, or you work in IT, or you're working food and beverage, your role ultimately is because we're looking after guests. We're welcoming guests to our park every single day, and we're selling those experiences. That's number one. I think the second thing is, when we look at those experiences, remember exactly what your product is. When guests leave, they leave carrying nothing at the end of the day. Maybe they buy a souvenir from the gift shop, and I know our retail team hope they do. But really, you're leaving with an experience that you've bought, and that experience is produced and manufactured and consumed all in the same place. And the team who control that is your ride and attendant, your ride and attractions host, your entertainment team, your park services team, your guest team. They all control that experience. We've got to make sure that we're getting that right, and we don't ever lose sight of that. And everything comes into that. If it's ride availability or ride throughput, are we running enough vehicles? Do we have enough capacity? Are our shows running often enough? Are we doing enough shows? Are we doing the right kind of entertainment on park? It all comes down to making sure we're remembering that we're here for the guest, and that's everybody's role.
I'm glad that you said shows, because I wanted to ask like a little sneaky question just to weave into the mix there of what we can almost look forward to in regards to the entertainment that Six Flags Qiddiya offers outside of the rides, outside of the dart ride experience. What sort of shows can we have in mind to see at the park?
Yeah, absolutely. So, firstly, we didn't build a theatre. We chose not to build a theatre in an enclosed venue at this point. Maybe it's something we look at in the future. But we're going to have lots and lots of street entertainment is our first thing. And I really think interactive experiences, meeting our characters, talking through those zone stories and the story of Six Flags is something that we're going to do really well. And secondly, is we're going to have a daytime and a nighttime show in our Citadel. That's going to be something really, really special. including characters. Our team are working on developing it. I don't want to say too much about it now because I don't want to spoil the surprise, but I've seen some really, really exciting stuff, and our entertainment team are going to blow you guys away when you see this.
I'm looking forward to it. Well, Brian McAmey said the other day when he walks around, he sees like the theme in detail and you know the whole surroundings. It's unlike anything that he's personally seen before at parks that he's worked at in the past previously. Would you agree with that statement? And how would you describe the theming and the immersion of the park compared to other Six Flags products, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've really taken it to another level. Both just when you look at Six Flags and when you look at parks around the world. I think the theming and the immersion is a real key concept for us in Six Flags Qiddiya, and it's really important that we deliver that correctly. We have the thrill, we have the rides, we have lots of different attractions, lots of entertainment, much like you can find in many of our Six Flags parks in the US. But to take that theming and to be able to tell a story and to deliver something that's truly immersive, I think it's something we're going to do really well, and it's going to be something very special.
So I believe I'm right in saying that the park is approaching 80% completion. Is that a rough percentage that's in the right ballpark there?
You're about the right ballpark, and when you see those photos coming online now, you can see that a lot of the ride hardware is installed, testing and commissioning has started, theming is ongoing, and it's at this stage now where you really see stuff come together. We've been through that process of lifting a lot of steel and laying a lot of cables and all that kind of stuff that I'm looking at holes in the ground, and of course they're important, but it's not very exciting. Now is a real exciting stage as you see everything coming together.
It really is an exciting stage for everybody around the world who's looking at this project from afar and locally, I'm sure. But just how many people have been brought onto the project as a whole to get it up so quickly? And are many of the construction teams locals, or have they come from all corners of the globe?
So everybody's from all around the world, and we've got more than 50 nationalities working across our project, which is great because we get everybody's experience. There's thousands of guys out there on our site and in our team, and we're building a bigger team. There's now, in terms of operations, we're about 300. That's going to be significantly higher by the time we open. So that recruitment stage of now bringing new team members on, training, setting those expectations is all something that we're going through. And we're really lucky to be going through. We gain a lot of collective experience, and I certainly don't have all the answers. So it's great to be able to work with a team of professionals that do.
When it comes to like the main attractions as a whole at Six Flags, it certainly seems to be the bigger and better mentality with many of the rides they're having it like a world's first, the world's longest, the world's tallest, the world's fastest, or anything individual such as the tilt coaster being the tallest in the world, for example. I mean, from an operational standpoint, how have you had to adapt and work with manufacturers from an operational standpoint for rides that the world just hasn't seen or catered to before?
Yeah, I think there's it's been a really exciting journey, and we've spent a lot of time working with manufacturers. We started this right at the beginning in design, and I think a story I've told before is when I first joined, the first thing they tasked me to look at was Falcons Flight and have an operational opinion on it. And I looked at it and said, "Oh wow, we need to seriously think about this." So we got with Intamin, we went to Intamin's office, we sit and we go through a process called design review. So we've done a lot of that with manufacturers of going through design, and we spend a couple of days or a couple of weeks, depending on the complexity, of sitting with that ride manufacturer, working through all of our issues, working through all of our standards, and trying to resolve everything to optimize the design. So Falcons was a great example. We originally had a single station. It just wasn't going to work operationally. We moved to a dual station. We worked together with Intamin, sorry, they finalized the design, but they took all of our input. So it's collaboration, and it's a really important to have a great relationship with your manufacturer and understand what you're both trying to achieve. And I think whether that's Falcons Fly or whether it's some of our dark rides or whether it's some of our smaller family rides, we've been through that process with all of them, and I think we'll be in a really good place for it.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Falcons there because just looking at that ride from an operational and a maintenance standpoint, it looks like a logistical conundrum for me. It really does. I mean, maintenance work atop a cliff, bolt checks on that giant top hat, for example. I mean, how are these things planned for? I mean, it's uncharted waters, and how is each process sort of managed from that standpoint?
Yeah, it is. And I think, the first thing is I'll say we have a fantastic maintenance and engineering team, some really, really skilled guys who've worked at some of the best parks around the globe. So I know I'm really lucky to be able to have those guys to work with, to rely on their experience. But again, working with the manufacturer, going through and planning, right? We have a plan now of we know exactly what maintenance our coasters need, who needs to get up to height and when, what do we need to attend to, what are our operating guidelines going to look like when we look at these things, and from everything, we've been through minuscule detail of putting wheel compounds through lab tests, through simulating weather conditions in computer models. We've been through the whole thing. We've got a model of where the sun's going to come up on the park and where it's going to go down and how that's going to impact. And we look at sun studies and temperatures and weather conditions. The whole picture comes together. I'm really fortunate that we've had a little bit of time to be able to plan for this. So hopefully we've got everything covered. I will say I don't think there's we're going bigger and we're going better and we're going we're going breaking records, but I don't think there's any technology that's not been done before. So reliability is obviously a key focus for us, and I really hope we can achieve it.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, was that a tricky obstacle to overcome? I mean, we've seen rides in the middle of the desert before, Formula Rossa, for example, in Dubai, and rides such as that. I mean, temperature seems to be one of the biggest hurdles, especially when you're having a more outdoor focused theme park. I mean, was that just extra conversations with the designers who have had experience in the building Middle Eastern coasters and such to achieve the maximum operational runtime?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Falcons is a great example of that. You'll see when you come into the station that all the wheels are air cooled. The train needs to spend and cooled with air conditioning. The train needs to spend a minimum amount of time in there so it reaches the desired temperature. We've simulated that. We know what happens if you don't run the wheel cooling system, and when you do run the wheel cooling system. And we've been able to do that. We've cycled it. We've done it in labs. We've been through tests. So, that's one consideration that perhaps if I was building a coaster in the UK. I have natural cooling. I don't need to turn the AC on. I just need to open the door and let the weather do its job. So it's consideration to make. Absolutely. It's a challenging environment, but there's lots of challenging environments around the world to build in. So just being able to manage that and plan effectively.
It's not just the big coasters that I'd like to discuss with you today, Neil. I mean, you were at IAPA recently showing off the Enchanted Greenhouse Dark Ride, which certainly gives me almost symbolic of vibes at Efteling with a twist. Now, could you just give us a little bit more insight on the Enchanted Greenhouse and maybe Into the Deep, because that one seems to be in the shadows somewhat and nothing's come to light about that just yet. So if you can shed any light on it, it'd be much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. Two great dark rides that we're developing, and the Enchanted Greenhouse is more family focused, which is a real important focus for us. We're always known, and we get a lot of discussion. I certainly see what the guys online are saying, and it's all about the tilt coaster and Falcons, and rightly so. But Enchanted Greenhouse is going to be a great story of going through the garden with one of our characters from the zone in Twilight Gardens for Asher. We'll take you through the garden and the journey, and it's interactive, and there's a great story. And actually, the guys are installing theme in the Enchanted Greenhouse as we talk. And I was just there a few days ago. It looks fantastic. It's going to be a truly immersive dark ride experience with a great story to tell. And obviously, you guys saw the press release. We're really lucky to work with Jora and ETF and Alterface on this project, and to have those three bring it together. And there's a great story there, and it's going to come together, and it's going to be a great family experience. And the same for Into the Deep. Triotech have done a great job with a ride system that's probably going to be slightly different than what you guys have seen before in a dark ride, but the vehicle is fantastic. It's got probably a little bit more intense movement than what we see in the Enchanted Greenhouse, so a slightly different experience. We wanted to make something a little bit different. It's going to be a great experience. I won't say too much about it because I think it's one of the things we've not talked about, but you guys absolutely have to try it. Make sure when you get out of the queue for Falcons, you head straight to our dark rides.
Sounds good to me. So with Vision 2030 paving the way for the future of Saudi Arabia as a forever changing and evolving entertainment space, do you feel as though having this first marker on the map with Six Flags Qiddiya and the grander vision gives you more freedom knowing you're the first setting the benchmark, for example?
We have great freedom and the ability to set the benchmark, and I really think that we're setting the benchmark really high and building on what's already been delivered as part of Vision 2030. So it's a great experience to be, but it's also a difficult experience to be. We're going to be the first true theme park in Saudi Arabia, so lots of challenges to overcome, lots of training to do. we always talk about, when I was in the UK and we went out to recruit, and if I was working at Blackpool, we could recruit from Alton Towers or from Flamingo Land or from Camelot, and we had these great skills to switch around. We don't have that in Saudi because there's no one next door to go and recruit from, so I don't have that skill set. So we're spending a lot of time with our team, training them, investing in them, bringing people on board a lot earlier than what we normally would do, just to make sure that we can invest the right training and the right experience in them. So I'd say it's a balance. It's exciting and it's great to be first, but it's also a challenge. But no problem's unsolvable. We'll get there.
That's good. That's good to hear. I mean, on say for example, Neil, you go there, you get into the park, and they say, right, Neil, from the Sirocco Tower to the Enchanted Greenhouse, you got free reign of whatever ride you want to go on first. Which one are you running to straight away from a fan perspective, and why?
Look, Falcons is absolutely undeniable, right? You've got to get to Falcons, and that's going to be the number one ride in our park. So absolutely there. I think Sirocco Tower is going to be my second. It's going to be a really special attraction. Obviously, lots of towers around the world, but no one's ever gone this big. We've spent a lot of time actually with SNS re-engineering their tower concept. When you see the size of that tower, it's bigger than any of the others around the world, and not just in height, but in width. It seats 32, so it's 8 across. Operates slightly different, and there's a little bit of a surprise coming in when you do get to ride that.
I like how you mentioned the two tallest rides there. I'm scared of heights, so straight away I'm walking into that park and I'm like, just gonna leave those till later. I've got to build myself up to it.
Yeah, well, hey, head to the dark rides first. We've also got some great themed rides for all the family. Build yourself up. Our bumper cars is all themed around London and London taxi cabs. So start there and work your way to Falcons.
Imagine that the British guy goes straight to the London taxi ride as his first sort of experience in a new country, in a new theme.
And that's the one thing they did let me have creative input on what should a London taxi cab look like for a bumper car ride.
Fantastic. Are there any other British influences sprinkled around the park that you've had a hand in?
I think you'll see influences from around the world.
Yeah.
Obviously, the bumper cars is one great ride, but you'll see it from around the world. We're known for being global, and as you sort of touch the zones as you come round, there's a story from everywhere to tell.
And I've said about what your favorite ride is, but talking about theming in the grander scope, is there a favorite land that's standing out for you? Do you feel as though even like now looking at the concepts or looking at the progress that you're at the moment with the project, is the one that you're looking forward to just looking around and going, wow, I could be anywhere in the world right now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Twilight Gardens, which is one of our family focused lands, is going to be absolutely stunning. The theming with the crystalline tree, which is the centerpiece of that land, is absolutely beautiful. We're planning to be quite a bit of a nighttime operation as well, and I really think the lighting package, and when you walk into there and you see that zone at night, it's going to be one of the most beautiful lands in the park. So that's probably where you'll find me when I'm not riding Falcons or the tilt coaster.
Yeah, of course. You'll just be doing laps of them, right? I mean, in terms of Falcons, I mean, looking at the cliff, I mean, what was the behind the scenes of that in terms of, health and safety, such as cliff erosion and stuff like that? How was that addressed, taking a coaster of that height up into to a cliff that's dealing with desert temperatures and desert erosion on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a team who are much smarter than me, who've looked into all the geotechnical aspects, and we've got research reports, and we've done sampling, and a long process of that design was looking at those technical aspects. We're fortunate enough that it's definitely a solid structure, and it was pretty easy to be able to put a cliff to be able to put a coaster up there. But of course, we have to monitor it. Safety is at the heart of everything we do and is our number one priority. So we will be monitoring that cliff, and we have been so far. No problems identified yet, but of course, safety remains the number one priority. So something that we'll be looking at as the ride starts commissioning, and of course when we open. I don't think we're going to have any issues.
I hope not either. So when it comes to Six Flags parks, I mean, I had the joy of going to Six Flags Georgia, call it my market research before going to Qiddiya. So I went to go and check out a standard Six Flags park that's been there for quite many years now. And I noticed like a lot of the rides have these hints, winks, and nods to that immersiveness of the coaster. Sometimes you get themed queue lines, and as soon as you go on the ride, it's basically a ride in a car park, for example. But Six Flags kind of hinted and immersed you into the story. When you look at Falcon Falcons, you've got that even the drop off the cliff is very much reminiscent of how a falcon hunts. It like stays quite high, then swoops down. Was that quite important when designing these particular rides to kind of immerse the guest into exactly the story you're weaving with the coaster itself, such as Iron Rattler, for example, and Falcons?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important for all of our rides. I would say that all of them have an immersive storyline. From when you enter the queue line, every ride has a story that's going to tell, and you're going to work your way through through the queue line, building on that story. So it's really important for us that the queue line becomes just as much as an experience as the ride does. It's going to tell you the story, and by the time you get on the ride, you're going to know all the background story, and it's going to have reverence and it's going to have meaning when you sit on the front of Iron Rattler or on Falcons or on Sirocco Tower, that you've been built up here and the story will continue. So it was important to tell the story all the way through the attraction, but as well all the way through the zone. And whether there's 4 or 5 attractions in each one of those zones, all of them lead into telling that story to really create it as an immersive zone. So I think that's what you'll find probably a little bit different here, that everything's really well integrated.
In terms of theming and immersion, I wanted to quickly ask you, because obviously I know the dark rides will probably have pre-shows of some sorts. I know Enchanted Greenhouse, I believe, has a pre-show. Do any of the coasters have a pre-show to kind of build up that anticipation ahead of the experience?
So coasters don't have a pre-show, but they do have a lot of media to tell you the story. So there's no physical room like you stand in a traditional pre-show and listen to that. But you take Falcons for an example, it will talk you through a journey as you're going through that queue line, and those queue line sections are themed as well. Sirocco Tower does have a pre-show, so it's really important. There's a really important storyline element that we're going to tell you about just before you board the ride and prepare you for that surprise that's going to happen.
I'm so glad you told me about the Sirocco Tower, because if I'm sitting there on a shot tower and I don't have some sort of audio cue or visual cue that I'm about to shoot up however many feet, I'm not great with that, Neil, I have to be honest. So I'm so glad that there's some sort of preparation there before the launch, not a blind launch like Ice Blast, for example.
You're going to have a completely different experience, and I promise you, even no matter how much preparation we give you, you're still going to be surprised.
Oh, great. Cheers for that. I appreciate it. In terms of the grand scale of the project, then, Neil, what would you say to people watching or listening or even reading this interview right now to get them to visit to Six Flags Qiddiya? What's the selling point here?
Look, I think it's one of the most exciting park projects that's happening in the world. I'm really a park guy, and I've been a park guy all my life. And I've been fortunate enough to visit more than 150 parks now. And Six Flags Qiddiya is by far one of the most exciting parks when it opens. There's some great ride hardware. I've never seen ride hardware like this in a park, and it doesn't necessarily have to be all about the ride hardware. But if you guys are interested in coasters and thrill rides or family attractions and immersive experiences, Six Flags Qiddiya, along with our water park next door, Aquaravia, is absolutely the place to be. I think it's wherever you are in the world. And I tell my friends in the US, just get on a plane. We're only 16 hours away. I promise you it's absolutely worth it.
And when they get there, a little bit of a rest and then just throw them onto Falcon.
Absolutely. Straight into the park, straight in for some great experiences.
All right, fantastic. In terms of Six Flags Qiddiya as a whole, when originally designing it and coming up with the ideas and stuff, what parks did you draw influence from, or can you say, was it from other Six Flags products? Because it seems very different from the portfolio that the park has already out there in the world.
So actually, one of our key references was Six Flags Fiesta Texas, which is the newest Six Flags park, and we use that as a sort of a reference point to start the design and to manage expectations. However, we've got a team from around the world. So we've got guys who've worked on Universal and Disney, and they've been all over the world. There's people from countries everywhere. So everybody's being able to bring that expertise, give their input, what works best, what doesn't work, what ideas have we had in the past that maybe we've not been able to execute, what have we executed that's not gone very well, do we want to look at doing that again or not? So I'd say it's kind of a little bit of a globalist strategy. We've been really lucky to have such a diverse team.
And on that note, Neil, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for joining me on Coaster Conversations. It's been absolutely great to chat to you and get the insight of this very exciting project indeed. Wish you all the success in the world with the park and the excitement that's to come. And you'll definitely be hearing me on Park Screaming from every single of the highest points dotted around. You'll be able to track my exact whereabouts each and every point around the park.
Awesome. Looking forward to it, and looking forward to see you in Qiddiya City.